Hi, students, and welcome to our Level 5 class. Today, I'm going to talk about second conditional or unreal conditional. To start, I want to ask you a question. What would you do if you had $1,000,000? Or if you had $1,000,000, what would you do? Maybe pause the recording now and answer that question for yourself. I'm going to share a slideshow with you. So I just asked the question, if you had $1,000,000, what would you do? And my answer, if I had $1,000,000, I would buy a house by the beach. And I also asked the question, what would you do if you had $1,000,000? Answer, I would buy a house by the beach if I had $1,000,000. It's really the same thing. We're just putting in the first one the dependent clause first, and then the second one, we're putting the independent clause first. We will talk about this more. So when do we use second conditional? And how do we form the second conditional? We use the second conditional to talk about situations that are unreal, impossible, unlikely, or hypothetical. Hypothetical meaning in theory, in imagination, suggested, but not real. Okay. So when we form the second conditional, we have two clauses, and we've studied about these. The dependent clause, which is a clause that has a time word often, like if, when, while, after, before. It also has a subject and a verb, okay, but it's not a sentence by itself. It needs another sentence to complete it. And then we also form the second conditional with an independent clause. In the independent clause, in the second conditional, we use would, might, or could plus the base verb. Okay, at the end here, I have the full sentence. If I had $1,000,000, I would buy a house by the beach. When you use the verb to be in the dependent clause, you must use were for all subjects. Example, if I were president of the USA, I would stop homelessness. If she were a millionaire, she would donate money to charity. Okay, notice verb to be. We can use it with I were, she were, he were, it were, they were, you were, all subjects were. I know this is unusual because when we think about the simple past, we say I was, she was, he was, it was, you were, they were, but not in the second conditional. It's were for every subject. Let's talk about using contractions with subject and would. I'm just going to pronounce these so that you know that when we speak, we often contract would with the subject. So I would, you'd, you would, we'd, we would, they'd, they would, he'd, he would, she'd, she would, it'd, it would. So we speak this way. You can also write this way, except it is very unusual to write. If if I had $1,000,000, I'd buy a big house. There's an example. We can also, I told you about would, but we can also use might and could in the independent clause. Okay. Would is used to show the result of a condition. Would is the past of will and shows a lot of certainty. Might is like maybe. Might shows less certainty. And could is used to show possibility or show ability. Like I if I practiced very hard, I could play the guitar very well. Okay, there's an example. Okay, let's move on. I'd like you to try now by yourself. You can look at these sentences and pause the video. And in this exercise, I would like you to try to first identify the dependent clause and find the time word or the if clause, as it's sometimes called. And then this will help you to complete these sentences because you know with the if clause or the dependent clause, what do we use? That's right. We use the simple past. And with the independent clause, sometimes called main clause, what do we use? That's right. We use would, could, or might plus base verb. Okay, you go ahead and try. Pause the video so you can try this exercise. Here are the answers to the exercise. I'm going to let you look these over by yourselves, but because we'll talk about it more in class, I just wanted to point out the last one. If I were you, I'd study English at Edmonds College. This is a bonus sentence because I didn't teach you about this before. If I were you is used to give advice to your friends, your family, anybody. Imagine your friend's car is broken down and you want to give her a suggestion. You could say, if I were you, I'd get a new car. You are not your friend, but you can still offer a suggestion as if you were her. Okay, so this is just a way we give advice. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop the share and stop the lesson for today. I hope you learned something new.